All right, yo, everybody. Here's another episode of the Mind Body Marathon Show. And on today's show, we have none other than my childhood friend, Brian Parana.
Yeah.
Going back to what?
It's like middle school.
Middle school.
Technically knew of each other.
Yeah.
Middle school.
We were teammates in high school, cross country, and he is a health coach and nutrition specialist. So we have this guy on the show here to kind of divulge some of his knowledge on some of those topics and help everybody, some of our listeners out to some lifestyle changes. So walk me through some of the things you're into these days.
Yeah. So what? We ran together like crazy back in the day. Like you and Dan, and it was just like us going for runs all the time.
Yeah.
Then
that was high school.
That was high school. Then we got into college, and I still tagged along with you.
I ran at Malone
University.
Brian would come down.
I would drive down
Town Pump.
Town Pump. Yep. So we'd go on. I still remember the Canton run. It was like 20 miles in a blizzard, and we came out on like 50th Street.
Yes.
And we had to go down and go back up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, 50, it was like 50 south, and we had to get to like 25 north. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we're just running and we're slipping because there's like an inch of slush everywhere.
That's amazing you reference that run, because that actually...
Those are the precipitous that like launched you into like your running career.
Potentially, yeah. But that run it's a top 5 all-time worst run ever.
It was pretty bad.
Because it was a snowstorm and it was super slushy and really slippery. But the problem was we were only running on Route 91.
Right.
And there was like no sidewalk, and it was just so dangerous.
Right.
Yeah. And remember Harbert stopped and went to his mom's house and just stayed there for the night. Like literally like stopped mid-run and stayed with his mom.
I'm done. I'm not doing this. I had to get back to my car, so it didn't matter. And there weren't Ubers then, so you were stuck.
One of the things that so then we go to college, and then we're running together and all that. But then we kind of lose touch a little bit, and then I get back in touch with you kind of when I'm just getting out of grad school.
Right. And getting your chiropractic.
Yeah. And then you were talking about how you were starting this thing called CrossFit, which nobody had really ever heard of at the time.
No. It was where I caught it on the trend. I was like a personal trainer in a gym. I'm like, what's the best way to train my clients? And I kept like kind of getting sucked into the CrossFit vibe and such, for not say CrossFit specifically, but the programming.
Well, because you were like having
methodology behind it.
You were having people like at your gym, you were having people carry rocks in the upstairs and stuff. You were doing very different things, like in the mid to early 2000s.
Yes.
That was way ahead of its time.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. So I opened one up, and then we were sending a lot of clients to you. Betsy, I saw her picture upstairs. Yeah. She was actually a world champion, Betsy Finley. At the age of 60, world champion CrossFitter. We won 3 years in a row. First, second, 8th place. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty wild. She was just a personal training client. She just was never worked out before age 50. And then just through just basic strength and conditioning, progression and overload over time.
And just getting people to not be afraid of that at that age, to move in different ways.
Yeah, definitely.
So then, you kind of get out of that game. Then what do you move into? You move into the health coaching aspect?
I ended up getting out of the CrossFit game, and then I was basically working out of my backyard barn as like a personal trainer, and then it just kind of evolved into more like nutrition health coaching.
Yeah,
with some fitness, obviously. It's all inclusive, of course. And then all of a sudden, lifestyle changes, behaviors, stress management, time management, all these things started showing up because they impact the person. If someone's time stressed or I have a large number of clients that are just like busy, entrepreneurial business owners, just successful, and their calendar just one end to the next full of stuff. So time management becomes critical to them being successful about taking care of themselves.
So say in that instance, you get somebody that's maybe not the weight they want. They're busy. They're obviously high stress. They got a family. They're trying to manage being there for the kids, being there for, work and not dropping the ball there. What are some of like easy techniques you kind of help them out with?
Well, one is to define busy. Every single person I think I've ever talked to uses that 4-letter word. They're always busy, but it's all relevant. And so then they'll say that, and I'm like, well, I can kind of trump you with like 5 other examples that they're actually busier than you are.
Yeah.
So like getting them to understand that they are ownership over their time is really important from the first part. But then we start to dissect, okay, what are the low hanging fruits? Basically, as far as like a body transformation, we're going to 3 things. We're going to movement, food choices, and portion control to help them get in better health, better energy, and ultimately, I would say majority of people I work with, probably about 60% are weight loss. Then the other 40 kind of fall in between digestion issues, performance. I have Christy doing the Chicago Marathon this weekend. I had Billy do one just the other day. I have Najib doing the Marine Corps. So
Yeah.
you got and I'll be talking with Sofia Reynoso from Mexico, a kayaker that we worked through not 1 but 2 Olympics, the Paris and Tokyo.
Yeah.
So just pretty cool to experience that stuff. But on a normal everyday basis, those are the 3 things that most people need to grasp. And I would say the first point of any of it is just awareness, making them aware of what their decisions are, get them to almost be like a out of party third, like looking in on themselves of like, stop, think about what you're doing, what your choices are, how much food you're putting in your mouth, what types of food you're putting in your mouth, how much are you even moving in a day. Most people, they wake up from a lying position to amble around the house, to get into a seated car driving position, to amble into the office, to sit for hours, to get back in the car, to get back in a couch at home, to lay in bed, and they just don't move. So basic things like even paying attention to step counts becomes really relevant.
So if somebody is, in that scenario where they're, they got a basically a sit down job and they're just kind of plugging away at that lifestyle, what are some of the ways that you kind of help them move more throughout the day? Because it's really funny because they can work out.
Right.
But what's interesting about that is even if you work out and then you sit for the next 4 hours, it's kind of a moot point.
Right.
It basically just boils down to neutral.
Right.
Which
you
is so
burn
shocking.
like 200, maybe 400 to 500 calories in an hour on a typical workout for most people. That it's easy to overeat. How long does it take to burn 200 calories? It's like a 30 to 40 minute walk. How long does it take to eat 200 calories? That's like 2 to 3 bites if you do it right. So, or a couple swishes here and you're already there. So when someone comes to me and they're time locked, as far as like movement goes, like we both are wearing it. So right here, mine got a colorful band. Yours is boring black.
Yes, boring black.
But like step counts become a very easy first point of awareness. It doesn't matter if they're working out. It doesn't matter if they push their workout starter button on there or something. If you're wearing your watch or a pedometer or even just carrying your phone on you, you can start to pay attention to how much you actually move.
Yeah.
And as soon as we start seeing what it is, like go back and look at your phone app and see how much you moved in the last whatever. And then we draw attention to it and then we start moving. Can I do more than I did last week?
Yeah.
That is like literally the easiest thing. I've had so many people just have success from getting 10K steps in a day,
right?
Alongside with eating better and just making better choices. It can be that simple. You don't have to like avoid carbs and like do these named diets or something like that. It's just like making better choices.
I know a lot of people that have had lasting success. A lot of my patients with weight loss and lifestyle management, they almost always are like, I just paid attention to the basics. I just ate better, watched what I ate, eliminated the crap, and then I moved more. And what's interesting about that is like, you don't even have to exercise more. You just have to move more. You have to like garden. You have to walk the dog longer. You have to just be more active.
Park farther away.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Literally.
But then like, there's even things like, the nitrous oxide dump, right? Which is like a Dr. Mercola sort of thing where you can do, if you don't know what that is, you can go to the Running Rehab YouTube page and check it out. But it's basically like a 3-minute exercise that mimics 30 minutes of cardiovascular work from a nitrous oxide standpoint, which helps to broaden blood vessels, which helps with fat burning, all that sort of stuff. And even if you're just locked into like, working, as a lawyer, accountant, whatever, business person locked into a seat, then you can do that, a couple times a day, and then it mimics like hours of working out.
Mm-hmm.
Like simple thing. There are hacks out there.
Right.
So again, you could check that out on our YouTube page.
I talk a lot about productivity in other, obviously with clients, but in other spaces of what I do. And no person can be productive for an 8-hour shift straight. It's just literally, it's humanly impossible for you to just like sit down and grind out for 8 hours. And if that's your expectation, then you're fooling yourself. And just even, hey, on your lunch break, like actually take a lunch break and go walk. And then we get people to start doing that. They are more energized coming into the second half of the day, so they can actually be productive and not just have this slow amble around getting their work done and being easily distracted because they're ready for a nap. So looking at steps is a really first thing. And if someone, I illustrate this as like kind of like a selling point to people, but if someone's moving 5,000 steps on average, and say the theoretical 10,000 is what we're targeting just for, I think that's a really easy, low hanging fruit number. If you're an active person and you move, then that makes complete sense to like that be your goal, your minimum goal. So if they're only moving 5,000 steps because they have a seated desk job type situation, they don't move when they get home, that's 5,000 less steps a day, 35,000 less in a week. 140-ish thousand steps in a month. That's almost 1.7 million less steps in a year. That's a significant amount of calories not getting burned through just basic levels of movement. So,
and I think, if we were to try to mimic, what our ancestors sort of had to deal with, like, back centuries ago when food was harder, life was harder, just general like doing of laundry and tending to food and crops was just like an overall stressor thing.
Go carry water for a mile.
Like you wouldn't ever back then fathom to exercise because you couldn't afford to just
that energy.
You can afford that energy expenditure, but you were active all day long. Right. And the theme being, I think with a lot of big lifestyle changes is just be more active, period.
Right.
Like go out of your way to take the stairs, like go out of your way, like you said, park farther, like go out of your way to do these like things that are just a bit more challenging. So that way you can, sort of mimic what we really ancestrally have, for the vast majority of our time here on this planet, been doing.
Yeah. Go back 100 years, the ability to be at a healthy body weight was pretty unanimous. But with modern technology, convenience and everything, we're increasingly growing overweight, obese, chronic illness.
Yeah.
Those are things that are killing our country and beyond.
So what do you think about food sources? How does that play a role with people's lifestyle changes?
Food sources, as far as like whole foods. Yeah. As far as like sourcing them, I don't spend that much time on. The reason being is I'm looking to this person's busy. They've got a lot going on. They've got their patterns of behaviors that they're stuck in.
Yeah.
I can't come in and say, we're going to go all organic and just like flip their kitchen table upside down and clear out their pantries. That's not the best next step for them.
Yeah.
Best next step is literally like, hey, can we find foods that are more convenient, that not like fast food things, but like literally whole foods? How do we make whole foods? How do we make you preparing your own foods more convenient for you to be able to eat lunch instead of just going out down to the local whatever?
Yeah. So what's an example of you might give somebody with that, like helping them to eat whole foods rather than, banking on McDonald's or Taco Bell?
A lunch. Let's go with this. We could have a sandwich, 2 slices of bread, could be about, depending on the bread, you're looking at about 140 calories. We're getting about 100 calories worth of protein, like a lean ham or turkey or a mix. We have a giant handful or 2 of baby carrots and a piece of fruit. You could do that literally every day of your professional career for years and be eating an appropriate amount of calories.
Well, what's amazing with that is whenever we start to think about what we're eating, a lot of times we miss out on that's why I bring up sourcing, because like say in lieu of that simple lunch that you just stated, say you went to Chipotle. Well, one of the things you're missing there is like the hidden oils,
Right.
All the hidden ingredients that are basically contributing to not only like calorie intake, but also like just rancidity of the body, just like rancid oils essentially. And Chipotle is one of the better examples, but even like if you went worse off, like your local diner or your obviously a fast food, like it's going to be way worse. And that's going to do substantial damage to your vessels, substantial damage to your macronutrient ratios and how you're processing things.
Right.
But that simple, lunch that you just gave, it's like, that's pretty fresh. And there's really not many like altered substances in there.
No.
And I think it's just really
get that lunch doesn't exist 4 days from now because all the food would like perish.
Yeah.
In a sense, maybe not the loaf of bread, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that would be an example. As far as like some of the food sourcing and stuff, it's like literally these people are so overwhelmed with their day to day that it's really hard unless someone's super motivated or that they've had it with whatever their health situation is, that they're going to go to those exponential levels. So like I'm literally trying to get the person to make the next best choice for them.
Yeah.
And then packing a sandwich with some vegetables and fruit is going to be way better than them going down the road to whatever place. So
yeah, that's a good point.
So it's just,
and they're more productive, because you're not going to be weighed down by that crappy lunch and
Yeah.
Okay, so same person on the go, life's
real
crazy.
Quick. So they eat their sandwich, their carrots or pepper and an apple or banana. That takes 5 minutes. Then they spend the other 30, 40 minutes moving, doing something that's not work related and like works for them to refresh, reboot, refocus.
So we just basically took a trip to the Grand Canyon, and one of the guys we were with is he's type 1 diabetic, and he was very particular about whenever he would eat, he would have to walk right after. And he if he was in the middle of the restaurant, he's like, all right, peace out. He ate, he would just get up and walk because he's just like, I have to balance my blood sugar right away. And it was really interesting that obviously he's closely tied in with his Dexcom and his readers and all that. But that's how we are as well. Like movement really kind of helps that. But the other thing that's important about what you said about that simple diet change is that say we, eat a traditional lunch from somewhere else, from like a restaurant or a fast food or something like that, everything there is dead, right?
Yeah.
But in the lunch you just stated, the majority of things in that lunch is going to hydrate you. It's going to be a positive. Like there's a positive nourishment with hydration associated with like apples and carrots and peppers and fruits and veggies, and then just like more natural things along those lines. And then that's substantially easier for your gut to break down. And then it's less of a drag on the system.
And soluble fibers. Eat things that were recently living. Simple.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. And then
I love that. I ran away with the diabetic with your buddy. When I do work with type 1, type 2 diabetics, pre-diabetics, like the list goes on. There's very little to this point that I have not seen as far as like human issues. Like work with people with cancer, like all sorts of, a lady of mine just had an appendix removed over the weekend. Like that was one of the more recent things. But movement is energy is a simple, again, an easy thing. So eat things that were recently living. Movement is energy. Like these basic concepts of what we're trying to talk about. Move more is that I will have them actually, like my diabetics, walk for 10 minutes to break down the blood sugar, because you eat food and your blood sugar naturally rises, but walking can just lower it, and then he doesn't have to rely so much on insulin
and units, the insulin,
which is what he wants to do, is the obvious sound of it, so he can control his blood sugar levels through balanced eating, not over consuming at any one time, not having an overly large amount of carbs, but then he can go move afterwards to, then you'll see his Dexcom probably is this, and it just goes right back to normal. And he probably feels a lot better that way too.
Yeah, he developed a lot of really good habits like that. And then we ran the rim to rim to rim.
Yeah, that was
a
lot.
He didn't bounce over 200.
Wow.
Yeah. And this guy's good. He's dialed in. Now, I was just talking with another patient who he ran an 18 miler recently, and his popped over 400.
Wow.
Which is not good. So that's not a blood sugar you want to hear.
100 to maybe 150. If you were at like 180, maybe like that's just because you just got done eating, but that shouldn't be like an hour be near after. 200. Yeah. Not good.
So that was pretty impressive on his part. Okay. So that same individual, we've walked them through their lunch, and then what are we going to do for dinner?
So I have 4 kids. Oldest is a high schooler now, 3 in middle school. Everyone should be eating the same thing. It makes sense for the household. It makes sense for you teaching your family and your kids how to.
Dr. Leo here. Be sure to check out my new book, Faster Without Fail, Your Guide to Overcoming Injuries and Running Faster Than Ever. It is now available on Amazon. You could read reviews on the Amazon. You can check out what other people have said about it. But basically, if you want to revolutionize your running form and better understand how to stay injury-free within the sport, this is your guide. Feel free to reach out and let us know what you think of the book. I would love to hear your feedback. But again, please check it out on Amazon. Faster Without Fail. Appreciate it.
It's how to be nutritionally sound. You're the role model that they're looking to.
Yeah.
And if you're eating a healthy, balanced meal, grandma had it best. We put a protein, we pick some vegetables, and we put some starch on a plate. And you just eat one plate full. Yeah. That's like literally it. It doesn't have to be any harder than that. You practice portions. You don't have seconds. You drink some water, and you're going to be good.
What about the dessert word?
Dessert. So that, as far as in general, I start people off to rethink about food timing, what actually defines a meal. And we don't want to just like endlessly consume calories. So when we eat, we're eating a meal. We're not eating dinner and then having dessert. It's all wrapped into this like meal component. And there's a certain amount of calories. Like say someone's eating 1,500 calories or 2,000. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But they're the first person at 15 has an average calories for 3 meals at 500. The other person in 2000 is 4 meals at the average calories of 500. The dessert is just part of those 500 calories at that meal. So you can have a cookie, you can have popcorn, you can have cheesecake, whatever, but 100 calories of cheesecake isn't that much. 500 calories of cheesecake still isn't that much, but that consumes all of your calories for that meal per se.
And the thing is, it pushes out your important macronutrients. Pushes out your proteins and your healthy fats and stuff.
Right. And even vegetables, like your calories go sky high with that type of thing. You're not eating vegetables in that situation most of the times. You're probably having starchy carb with it that is calorie dense, and there may even be some sauce or something that has calories. So adding something like, say, a cheesecake is just more calories on top of whatever you're eating, not included into that meal.
A lot of my family and patients hate me because I don't have a sweet tooth. I'm not really part of my problem, it's not really a problem, but part of the benefit of that is essentially that it comes from is that once I know that something is like bad for me, I don't even care to consume it. Like it's just out of my, it's just done.
Right.
And so for me, like, crappy, like sourced, like chocolate and sugars is like, it literally makes me sick.
Right.
Like I can't even like have a little candy bar. It doesn't even like, there's no absolute thrill in that.
Right. He ends up in the bathroom like frequently for hours after when he does
I've worked my way into that because I've just abstained from it for long.
Sure.
And my taste buds have literally changed.
Right.
But what's interesting about timing of food and the way we break down food is that our bodies will put a priority on substances on burning substances that it can't store. Right. So say we go to, we go out for a nice steak dinner for our anniversary. We have a glass of wine, steak dinner, potato, veggies, and a dessert. And basically we're eating that dinner. Well, our body will then first consume the alcohol
Right.
because it can't store alcohol.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has to burn that.
Pay attention to this. Like alcohol, I always, when I talk to people, I say your stomach is the party.
Yeah.
There's the bouncer at the door. All the carbs and fats are having a good time, and then alcohol shows up and starts causing a ruckus. And they're like, "Whoa, we got to get rid of this guy." So they push the carbs and fats to the back room and just store it in your butt and your gut.
Yep.
But then you got to deal with that alcohol. So like your body will shuttle that stuff so quickly into fat storage, never to bring it back out, because then you go home and you're comatose because you had like 1,500 plus calories and you're not moving anyways.
It basically, so like burns through the alcohol first, then it burns through the protein, because really you're just going to change that over into amino acids, fresh amino acids. Then it burns through the carbs if it can, and then it burns through the fat last. And whatever it needs to get to from a nutrient dense standpoint, it sifts through first, and then the extra, just like Brian said, just literally gets shuttled to the body. So you can store carbohydrates as glycogen, but that's only about 2,000 to 2,500 calories in the body. That's not much. And there's roughly only 5 grams of glucose in your bloodstream at any given time. So you're not storing a lot of carbohydrates. So in that same meal, which is why cakes and cookies are so bad in and of themselves, because it's a lot of sugar and a lot of fat. And that combination is just really, really bad, because your body will fly through the carbs first and it'll just store the extra fat. And so that's often why that you kind of get into trouble with those things. But if you take that same meal and you maybe changed it up so that like you maybe consume the alcohol hours before the meal or something, or hours after the meal, then you're not going to burn it in the same way, and you're going to kind of sift through it a little bit differently, or just abstain from the alcohol altogether.
Or the other alternative would be, I always tell people there's a certain percentage of my clients are always going to drink. We're not trying to do a dry January when they're working with me because they drink alcohol. Okay, let's deal with it. I always say alcohol swaps for the starch in the meal. So like you go out, you get the steak, you get the vegetables, and you have a glass of alcohol. And then so like the calories intuitively work similarly from the starch to the alcohol. So you're not adding calories on top of everything. And then your body is much more likely to manage the protein in the vegetables in a situation, and the caloric impact of the meals way down lower.
So explain that a little bit more. So you're saying they should eliminate the carbs if they're going to take alcohol in?
Yeah. So like a hack would be just like intuitively, if you're going to have alcohol at dinner at night, just skip the starchy carb.
Okay.
Because of exactly what we just went through.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. The other analogy I use is like, when we go to the gas station, like I fill up my tank. This guy lives, his office is a little farther away from my house.
Well, I have a Tesla, so I don't do that.
Yeah. I have a hybrid Mini Cooper. So most of the time I don't do that. But so we fill up our gas tank and we're pumping, and then the automatic pump shuts off. So that's the appropriate amount of food or gas that you need for your car to move and fill the tank. What we do is we routinely keep squeezing the trigger to the pump, and then gasoline spills everywhere. That spillover stored body fat. So it's extra calories as a result of whatever you ate ends up getting everywhere. Like the gas attendant's really mad. People around you are thinking the gas station's going to blow up. You're like, oh my gosh, everyone hates you, and it's all over your clothes. You're like, I'm going to explode and light up. So we just don't want to like overfill your gas tank is what we're saying. Yeah.
Well, that's just the thing too. It's like, I think you got to go into a lot of times when you go out to eat, have a game plan.
100%. Yeah. I'm sitting on June as a client. We talked earlier today. She sent me not one, but 2 different restaurants that her daughter made reservations to in Chicago because she's doing the Chicago Marathon, and June is going there to support her. She's like, what do I eat? They're both Italian. So we're going to manipulate total calories in the day. We're going to manipulate where her carbs are coming in the day, knowing that she's going to an Italian restaurant that's going to serve carbs, and she's not going to go in there and order chicken and broccoli or something, because that's weird. And for everyone, everyone in the whole restaurant's like, what is she doing? Like, why?
Don't put her in that position.
Yeah, we don't want to be weird. And so we're going to manipulate her food choices earlier for lower carbs, lower calories, and make sure that she has an adequate amount of space in her gas tank to put all that fuel in without it spilling over. So she'll wake up the next day and be like, hey, I didn't gain weight. It's like, if she ate like 1,200 calories at that meal and it is primarily carbs, she might be a little puffy because carbohydrates attract water and retain. And so like you might not feel as lean or something the next day, but that doesn't imply that you actually gained body fat, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So in that situation, we're going to do our best to think forward first, look, make sure we're picking the right, whatever it is you want to eat. And mostly if you're going out to eat, or like going back to the dessert thing, have the cookie, have the high quality piece of chocolate. Don't like do this food science chocolate, high protein chocolate monstrosity thing by one of these sport nutrition places that are pumping this stuff out now, because it's all that other type of stuff we were talking about.
Fabricated products.
Yeah. Just eat the delicious, I don't know, like the first thing that comes to mind are the Ghirardelli squares that are about 70 calories in a single serving. Eat it, enjoy it, make it a part of your day. Yeah. You're good. You don't need a whole Hershey chocolate bar to have the chocolate experience.
Focus on high quality.
Yeah, exactly. High quality and the experience of what is there. Or even like with June going to the restaurant, I want her to have a very enjoyable time eating something that she doesn't normally eat at home, but practicing portion control and managing her own thought process and patterns of behavior so that she gets out of there feeling empowered, like, wow, I had a great experience all around, and I didn't just like put too much food in my face and I regret it.
So would you have somebody in that scenario, would you have them intermittent fast?
Well, I like
early in the day or something like that?
Yeah, so the term intermittent fast, there's literature out there now that states that there's no difference between continuous eating in a lower calorie or fasting and eating in a certain calorie window. It's energy balance over time, not in the time that you're awake, but in a 24-hour time frame, in a 7-day time frame, in a 4-week time frame. I regularly ask people this. Hey, Bob, like, hey, what if they're like, what happens if I eat right before I go to bed? I'm going to gain all the weight, right? I'm like, well, let's play this out. Say in 4 weeks, we lost, 8 to 10 pounds. Does it matter when you ate your food? No, it really doesn't. It doesn't matter how late. It doesn't matter whatever fasting window or whatever. You've managed to stay in a calorie deficit over that 4-week time frame. And maybe 1 or 4 days you messed up and you ate too much, but you went right back to the plan and you stayed on track. So in terms of like fasting, I always say, let's replace that word so you get rid of past all the hype that's out there now. There's a lot of buzz around intermittent fast. Just that term there. Let's just call it a food window. There's a time in the day that I eat and a time in the day that I don't. And then in your brain, it helps structure around when I should eat or not. So on a normal every day, say you don't eat right before you go to bed, you eat dinner and then you don't eat again. And when someone offers something like a cookie or whatever, popcorn, your spouse or whatever, your buddy, your roommate, you're like, well, I just don't eat now. So it's an easy pass. So in that situation, we got a lot of different options. So with her, she goes to Italian at night. So we need to first understand how many calories does she need to have an enjoyable experience, even if it's like crazy amount of carbs. Okay. Calories equated, doesn't matter if it's a high protein, high carb, high fat, whatever diet, it's still going to equal energy balance because we're living creatures. It's just the law of physics and energy needs. So she's going to eat a lot of carbs. We need to manage. Say she has 1,000 calories put aside and she's doing 1,500 calories. She has 500 calories left. Logically, we would just not eat breakfast. We'd have something around noon that's a lean, the opposite of what she's eating, lean proteins, vegetable, heavy, so she can stay full enough to get to dinner and not just want to eat all the bread roll basket that comes out first because she didn't eat all day and she's going to do one meal a day. Like that's a poor strategy. Yeah. She's going to go in super hungry. So We could cut down calories earlier in the day, just eat twice. That can make a lot of sense. She could have 2 smaller snack size meals in a sense that are like 200, maybe 300 calories a piece, and then have dinner. She could go run 10 miles. Then a normal day can insist. She can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, knowing that she's still going to have 1,000 calories at dinner. So there's lots of opportunities. Or she could eat too many calories that day, but the 2 days before and the 2 days after, she's in a calorie deficit to absorb that calorie influx and it be a net neutral 4 days later.
So what I appreciate about your approach is I appreciate that you are, you're walking people through very basic strategies. You're not trying to get them to like make crazy changes. I know there's some people out there that are putting out things that are.
The 75 hard is just an example. Yes, we can do our own 75 hard. We need to drink water. We need to move throughout the day. We need to get sleep. We should be doing something for ourselves, like a good habit of reading or whatever. And whatever else it is, we don't have to have this, like, I got to do it for 75 days and it has to be exactly this, or I fail and I have to start over. Like, holy moly, that's a lot of pressure, especially when you get past 50. You're like, oh my gosh, I've just been doing this almost 2 months and I'm going to like, pressure's on. I better like finish it. Like, well, what happens afterwards? You're going to keep this like intensity and pace? Probably not.
Yeah. And so, I definitely appreciate that approach. What do you say to people that are like, well, I thought calories in, calories out was debunked?
There's a significantly amount of studies that suggest that it's not. So we've seen it even in unfortunate parts of history. When humans don't eat, it's not a good thing. You've seen that multiple times happen through different eras, or it was like World War II with like the Holocaust. Like, it's incredibly unfortunate. They were not eating. They withered away when they were found and discovered and freed. Like, they were just skin and bones. And so when we think of that, or like even like the Minnesota study of where like guys were just restricted on a really, really, really low diet, they were like stockpiling food magazines and stuff and like hanging up like today's bakery recipe on the wall because they were just like so infatuated with just food because it's a basic need.
Well, whenever you read the book, actually it's right here, Endurance, they talk about, which is one of the greatest books ever written, and it's about Ernest Shackleton's like 1901 or 1910 trip to the Antarctic. And every member of that expedition survived. What's amazing about it is if you read the kind of day-to-day accounts of what they were thinking and feeling, one, they were telling tons of jokes. Positivity, so that helped them survive. Even like when they were like literally losing limbs, they were telling jokes. And then two, they would always talk about food. They would always talk about like, oh man, I remember this, my grandma makes this thing, and like they would just like reminisce about it. It's such an interesting component.
So that's what I would say as far as like when someone says calories don't matter. Yes.
Or that, not that they don't matter, but more that like calories in, calories out. Like we don't want to calorie count as an emphasis. Like I hear that a lot with a lot of like trendy people now.
Right. Yeah. I have clients that track calories. I have clients that don't. I have a multitude approach on how do I get this person to literally, again, the same thing we've been talking about the whole time, is just make better decisions around better portions, better food choices, and take responsibility for their actions. So if someone's going to track, I always point this out, any nutrition label could be a 20% error on what it says based on FDA approval, meaning that just like the art of the calorimetry, how they come up with calories. I always kind of start the conversation with like, everything's man-made. A calorie is man-made. The process of assigning calories to a food is man-made. Yeah. And so they're like just associating this way of lighting a food on fire and energy disbursement to a caloric figure, so that like us as normal people can go around and be like, this has 100 calories in it. Well, it might have 80, it might have 100, 120, but they can call it that just based on the way they go about that stuff. Then if you go to like calorie tracking apps.
So does that mean they usually undercut it?
A lot of, yeah, probably. I mean, that's that's capitalism at its best.
Yeah.
Right. Like call it 100 calories. We're going to give them 80.
Yeah.
Like Halloween's coming up. And from our days of running around and getting the fun size candy bars, they're like the miniature size candy bars these days. And the miniatures are like, like whatever. So they just shrunk them down, but they're charging like even more. So going back to like calorie counting, so the app is made by a human, and then it goes into the tracking of the inputs of food into the database can be inputted by humans. Like MyFitnessPal has a lot of human entry into it. It might be accurate, it might not be.
Yeah.
And so like and then the person, their knowledge or skill set around weighing and measuring food appropriately and tracking it appropriately. Literally June going back, I talked to her this morning. She put in 95% green, lean ground turkey. There was like a sauce. There was some tomatoes that were in it and something. So she logged it and it came back with like having 45% fat.
Yeah.
And she was just like, this doesn't seem right. I'm like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, did you check that the ground turkey that you selected was 95%, or was it just grossly listed as not ground turkey? Because that's the minute difference that she was like, oh,
yeah,
I just picked ground turkey, but I have to be specific. So there's so much error in just calorie tracking in a sense that like just.
Dr. Leo here. If you want to catch me in another setting, be sure to check out my YouTube page, Running Rehab, where you will find exercises on how to stay healthy with running, how to improve your running form, and a bunch of other tips and tricks on how to get over common injuries.
Just calorie tracking in general, we're looking at making good generalizations of having an appropriate amount of food on a plate when you eat it. So then we're not eating too many calories.
Yeah. So what if somebody's, really looking to take it to the next level? They want to be maximized. They want to be like life extension, Dave Asprey kind of person. What are some of the go-to suggestions there you have?
Well, you're going to, in general, you're going to eat less calories, period. The more food you put in your body, the more stress, strain, reaction, metabolism, all this stuff that you're going to do. So if I eat, say, 3,000 calories today, but I only need 2,000, I'm putting a lot more strain and stress on my whole system, my digestion, my metabolism, my all these things. So you're going to eat less calories in general. There's a certain amount of movement you're going to do. You're going to do a lot of just like base level activity of walking, moving. You're going to do occasional lifting heavy things. Like if in our modern society, it's going to the gym and picking up a weight and putting it down so that you maintain muscle mass, because the more muscle mass that you have on your body indefinitely for the duration of your life, the longer you're going to go. Just like people that don't have a lot of muscle mass and are basically frail from that type of standpoint, they're not going to make it. Whether they're 60, 70, 80, 90, they're working their way out.
Well, what's super important, so what he's alluding to is sarcopenia, which is basically muscle wasting. Now, when somebody ages, that's really important because the muscles will help obviously protect you. So to protect your bones, so like falls, that kind of stuff, you're preventing fractures, but
functional daily movements.
But in critical there, but almost more importantly, it's based on hormonal balance. Keeping your growth hormone high, your insulin levels balanced. Muscles are the biggest regulators of that system because they're the biggest consumers of it. So if you have a decent muscle mass or decent muscle bulk, essentially, not that you have to be buff or anything, but that there's relative to your whole life, there's a decent amount. Like you didn't like waste away, essentially. Like you're maintaining your good density that you've had most of your life, and your hormones are used to that. Then you're going to balance your insulin better. You're going to balance, your blood sugar better. You're going to have your sex hormones are going to be markedly better. And there's that added benefit too.
100%. And you're just going to be more, you're going to live life. So you're going to do those other aspects of being a human being.
Yeah, you're not going to be
social,
afraid to
having
go like hiking and do all that.
Yeah, being outside. Like you're not just like in the old people house and just like sitting on a couch doing puzzles.
Well, episodes of Bonanza.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing, so then like doing occasional fun things like play, like do the soccer game, do the pickup basketball game, go do pickleball's all the rage these days, right? So like whatever that activity means to you, those are going to be some of the basic components of like longevity as a human. You're going to be eating tons of vegetables and fruits. You're going to be eating a modest amount of protein, some starch. Again, we go back to the whole thing. We said you're only eating enough starch. I always just think of it like carbs are your energy source as a human. So we only need so many carbs to fuel your daily activity.
Yeah.
If you just sit all day, you don't need a lot of energy. It's just the way it is. But if you're like running like this guy has, you need a lot of energy. You might need like 3,000 or 4,000 calories some days just to go polish off a 10-mile run. But that's not what most people are doing. So that ends up being some of the things that I think that promote longevity. As far as like all the other things, you really have to go into the science research studies, the peer-reviewed stuff of like is infrared and like the cold plunges and all these other anecdotal things. Yes, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence of people saying like the cold plunge is like the bee's knees, but if you look at it from a science-backed perspective or look at studies, there isn't necessarily a lot of weight behind sitting in a bathtub full of ice, and even to the extent of the average human that's unrelatable. They're not going to fill up a bathtub.
Yeah,
they're not going to go buy 10 bags of ice to get it cold enough, and they're not going to sit in it for 10 minutes. That's like an hour worth of process that they're just not going to do, and it's not practical to expect. Certainly, you and I both could agree, like getting an ice bath, like I did them many times in college. It felt refreshing, felt like after you got done with the run, it was the right thing to do. But also, you went into the sport athletic room and they had these giant tubs that like you could fill up with water in like seconds. And then you scoop in like giant heaping from the ice machine. Like I would scoop, toss. Yeah. And within 5 tosses, like the water's like 50 degrees. I got little footies and turn on the hydrojet and I just sit in there for 10 minutes. It's super convenient. So like that made sense. But in my day to day, I'm going to cold plunge in my above ground pool in my backyard because it's freezing now.
Yeah.
I'll just go out in that if I wanted to do a cold plunge.
Okay. So that's the thing too. It's like, it doesn't have to be necessarily this regimented, we buy all this equipment and we do all this thing. Cold exposure in general is just mimicking what we've been used to doing our whole existence. And, in the winter, like going out and doing something arduous in the winter, like just being exposed to the cold.
That opening story of us running is us being out in the cold in like 20-degree weather.
You always go, like a lot of people go, man, runners don't seem to age. I just met up with a bunch of guys that I ran with professionally, and it literally has been probably 20 years since I've like run with these guys, and we all look the same. And it's just because like our face is always exposed, our skin is always used to like bouncing, so the fascia is tighter. Like we just don't age the same way.
Right.
It's crazy. Yeah. But there's.
You should see the muscles on him when he runs too.
Not on this guy. I wish I had muscles when I was going down the Grand Canyon.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. This guy, I remember back in high school. Again, he's running like 15 to 16 minute 5Ks on our home course and stuff. You're like, this guy's ridiculous. I'm running like 18, 19 or something. I can't ever stay up with him. But he would like bust out like 50 push-ups in a row. Like he's the Chicago, rip off 50. And then by Malone, you could barely do 10.
I know. Nobody believes me that I went through that period. I was a crazed person with push-ups. I went through about a year where I was obsessed and I would do 500 push-ups a day.
Yeah, I can
Like,
attest to it.
There's so
I can
many
attest
stories
to
I have, and people are like, "There's no way you did that." I'm like, "No, I would do 10 sets of 50."
Well, now you can reference that in like minute 46.
I would literally.
You're like, he validates me.
So what he was referencing is I worked at a pizza shop,
Yeah.
and I would be like, I was so mad that the smokers got a break,
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, I'm not. I should get a break too. So I would go. I gotta go to the bathroom. And I would just like lock myself in the bathroom and just do push-ups and read books and stuff. Where they're outside
Now, he wasn't
smoking.
like putting his hands on the floor.
Oh my gosh! But then when I was at school, I would always ask to go to the bathroom,
pizzas.
and then I would go back, and then I would just do push-ups like in the hallway. It was like my junior year. But then track came along. And remember how like jacked I was? The coach was like, "What did you do to yourself?"
Oh man, yeah. I just remember when you went to like the London trials, like doing 10 push-ups was
I could barely. And then
because you're so specific to endurance specializing.
Yeah, I got very
your
weak.
whole body and your musculature, everything was geared up to my second Everett. He's not as tall as me. He's looking me kind of in there. He's like looking me here, not here. He's not taller than me, but he's freaking tall at 13.
Mm-hmm.
But he is skin and bones, and he's got better six pack than I do. And so, but he can't do push-ups. He's just long and lengthy. But like he's going to go out for high school cross country next year. Some of the conversations we have, and I'm like, this guy has the best runner's body. So like, look out. Like I don't know if he's going to be. He's very into art, and he does it incredibly well. Like he's had his art in the art museum, at the mayor's office, has been at different like Goodyear headquarters, all these different cool things. And so he actually got paid. Like Cog Falls bought some of his art and showcased it. I found it in Blossom. I went on a field trip with their Miller South Middle School, and his artwork was hanging up in backstage Blossom.
That is so cool.
It was pretty cool. So he's really into art and visual arts and all that stuff, but he's got a main part in play. So I'm not sure how his focus on art will translate into like say physical exercise. He's always been active, and he's played soccer, and he ran cross country a couple years ago. It'll be interesting to see like how serious does he take it. He takes a lot of things pretty serious, and his schooling, everything. It'll be interesting to see. But he's got the runner's body at the very least.
Remember when I can't remember the guy's name, but remember when he came out for cross country and he was on the JV and he ran the JV race, and he went out and he was like leading, and he goes into the cove at Goodyear, and then he doesn't ever come out.
It's like Jeremy or something. No, we need Dan here to reference his name, right?
Then the next day at school, we asked him, and he said that he ran home. He was too afraid to come out and race.
Yeah, he was like out, like significant. Like he was
way ahead of everybody.
Dash.
Then he never came out of the woods, and then he just like, dude, I walked home. I hate this sport. He goes, "Can you bring me my stuff from the meet?"
I'm done here.
All right, so we're kind of rounding third on the episode here. So walk me through any final little tips that you might want to give any of our listeners and anybody that's made it through this episode.
Well, first, thanks for hanging tough. The people ask me, I do a lot of consult calls. And I've had that first introduction with a lot of people, and they'll be like, "Brian, what's the thing that throws people off? Why do they not like get where they want?" One word: it's consistency.
Yeah,
just constantly showing up, constantly putting in the work, the reps, the sets, and that's not implying like workout language. Is like, I have this weekly check-in sheet. It says basic things like, and it rates at 0, which is obviously didn't do anything. 1, you're thinking about it. 2, it was yes. 3 is nailing it. So it's very basic in terms of self analysis. But it's things like, am I working on the 2 habits? So again, behavior change has to be brought into this. 2 simple things. Usually when people start with me, they're focused on the W squared, walking in water. Can I get more water than I've been drinking? Can I move more than I've been drinking? Great. If they show up in the second call and they've done that, great, good job. Like you're in the yes or the nailing it category, depending on what our goals were. There's things like, am I calorie aware? Am I moving enough? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I staying on positive mindset, like with the endurance story in the Arctic? Am I focused on the most important tasks that are going to move this forward to create this consistent lifestyle? Because soon as you get over the hump of losing the 30 pounds or whatever it is, the health issues that you're experiencing or whatnot, like diabetes or whatever, when it comes down to it, you're doing the same thing on repeat the rest of your life.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to do. It's just like, how do I find variation in doing the basic things of drinking water, getting to sleep and not staying up, all the things.
So how long does it take for those habits to stick?
Awesome. I love this question. The habit takes as long as you allow it to take. You'll hear it all over the YouTubes and the podcasts. It's 21 days, it's 60 days, it's 90 days. No, it takes as long as you are going to allow it to happen.
Yeah.
So have a heart attack or get diagnosed with lung cancer. Chances are you might abruptly change your behaviors of like, I'm not smoking anymore.
Yeah.
I smoked for 25 years. Now I'm not smoking. I got this news and it directly impacted. And now you've literally shifted habits. So that is a real thing. And so if you can plant that seed in someone's mind and let it to, nourish it and fertilize it and water it, then all of a sudden habit and behavior change can happen quickly and rapidly, which is what everyone wants. Like, why didn't I lose 10 pounds this week? You're not supposed to. You're supposed to lose 1, 2, possibly 3 pounds this week, not 10. Any person who's ever lost 10 pounds has gained more back months down the road. Like it's not like, yay. So that's what I would.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think that comes down to time. It's not overwhelming. And, you're kind of meeting people where they're at. And it basically helps get them emotion involved in their changes.
Creating an identity change. And that's study after study show that getting support is going to get you further faster. And that's what I leverage. I have developed a skill of just being very personal with people, connecting, building rapport quickly, like championing it, whatever their goal is for them. Like I'm like the Mickey to the Rocky in a sense.
Yeah.
And so when you have someone in your corner that's constantly upbeat, positive, showing up for them more than they've ever experienced before, those habits, those behaviors, those things can stick significantly faster because we're focused on that.
This is kind of a little bit of a side question, and then we'll kind of dip out. But what happens if you're in a scenario where you're working with somebody and they don't have a good support group, meaning their significant other, their kids are battling their changes?
Yeah, great question. We hear this all the time. The 5 closest people are going to have the biggest influence on you. And if you have a support system that is supporting your changes, it's going to be relatively easier. Yeah. But ultimately, when it's all said and done,
that's usually not the case.
Usually not. Yeah, it's usually not. So it doesn't matter how many people are unsupportive of your lifestyle change. You are ultimately responsible for your own actions, your own health, your own situation in this world. So like I can blame anything and everything on my wife, Amber, but it ultimately kind of just circles back to me. Because of the choices or the decisions or things I said or did or whatever that created that situation in a sense. So like poor health, say your spouse is always bringing in, takeout. Well, you can have a candid conversation with them, be like, this doesn't serve me. I understand why you want to do it. That's fine. Choose not to participate in it.
Yeah.
And that it can be as simple as that. But if you say that and then you don't follow through with it, and every third time you trip up and then fall backwards for 4 days, they don't believe you. So then you lose trust with yourself, you lose trust with that person, and they're just going to continue their behaviors. Tony Robbins says that when two people come into a room, the one that has the biggest presence is going to be the one that takes the lead. And so if your lifestyle change is more important to you than their decision to grab takeout randomly from this one place, whatever that you do like, then you're going to win or you're going to lose that situation based on what is important for you. So the other thing, I've had people break up in situations
like
Jose,
relationships. And stuff.
Jose, we kept talking and he's like, man, I'm really stressed out about my girlfriend. And she did this thing that if I said it out loud, you're like, oh yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And it really was creating a lot of internal friction, which then his stress coping mechanism was to go eat and drink and overconsume by himself even, and not have an open conversation with her. But like in 2 weeks later, like he broke up with her, and it was just because the relationship was in proximity too. Like she lived in the same building, like they saw each other a lot. They were two single people, like those are just things. Like one time someone invited over to watch a movie or something. And that's how that happened in a sense. But it wasn't like, I was just like, hey, is this your life partner? He was like, no. I'm like, okay, well, like if you let go of that, you might find your life partner, someone that agrees with you. So you have to be open to letting go of relationships, of vices, of challenges, of situations, or approaching them radically different than you have in the past. So you don't have to have these like direct, like hard friction things of like, I guess I'm going to divorce my wife or something. Right. That's not a good idea. There's probably other reasons why you love that person.
Oh, and in a way, like when you, like, I like what you said earlier, like you lose the spouse or the significant other will lose trust in a lot of your actions. It's like, if you do genuinely make these changes, then a lot of times you can change them because you can be such a great example and they can see how you're more positive, and your brain is very goal oriented. You know, if you make goals for yourself, you know, you want to learn a new language, you want to make these changes, you want to lose weight, then your brain starts to go, okay, if I can do that, what else am I going to do? And it becomes a feed forward mechanism. And then all of a sudden those changes become addicting to people around you because they start to see like, oh, wow, like, I really can make a lot of these changes too.
As long as you go about it in a way that's manageable, that's sustainable, that's not creating a lot of friction in a sense. So like that'd be the one thing I would say in that situation of like, you wouldn't like, just say like in your situation of like, you went from like couch potato and party or something every weekend and your buddies are like, why are you running marathons now?
Yeah.
Like, this is weird. And like that could be your own personal choice, but you could influence them to change, but also you might just have to be open and accept them for who they are and their choices in their life, and it is what it is. So you can still have a great relationship regardless of whatever that is without causing that friction or something. And you can change, but again, guess what's going to happen? You're going to create different relationships with people that are more goal oriented and focused toward what you are, because humans are attracted to similarities, and you're going to end up phasing out of that lifestyle anyways. So that's going to happen.
So what are some of your fitness goals right now?
My fitness goal, I'm 41. I want to look and feel the way I do when I'm 50. It's a good one.
Right now. Like, so in 9 years you want to look and feel the same.
Yeah. I really.
So how are you doing that?
This is just a silly thing for me, but I want people to be like, "How old are you?"
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how old do you think I am? Let's play this game. And so,
I know, I get that as a doctor. It's like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I was expecting somebody older."
Doctor, and you should be 55 like, or something. Right?
Well, I am 42, so.
So that I want to play the game. Like I'm 50, but they think I'm like 42. And I'm like, wait, the math is weird here. You've got like someone you're like 3 kids out of college or something, and you don't look that old. Like it's just something silly. And so how do I do that? we go back to that weekly check-in sheet. Am I drinking enough water? Am I sleeping enough? Am I moving enough? Am I in a positive mindset? Am I focused on the things that matter the most to me? So for me, I have my family, I have 4 kids, my wife, so I support them as to my full ability. Then I have a very small friend group that I have with. Like, he reached out, and it was only a couple of days ago that we talked, and here I am, and we hadn't seen each other in a couple of years. And it was like I saw him yesterday, basically, is how it went, just like an hour ago. And then I have my clients and the people I'm serving. So like I'm like hyper focused. Like I don't even know what's going on in the world. Basically, like if it's not in my Apple News when I swipe left to get to my maps feature to go places and stuff, then I don't know what's going on, because I'm so hyper focused on helping people, which ultimately, if I help others, then I help myself. Yeah. And that helps my family to provide that support and everything. So those are the basic things of being consistent, working out, moving enough, getting my steps, drinking water, eating lots of vegetables, eating lean protein sources, having some fruit, monitoring, not over consuming, so I don't have to work so hard. I'm like very lazy about it. I'm very active and moving all this, but I'm very lazy about it in a sense of like meal preparation, or like, I don't even know what I'm going to eat today, but because I understand the basic components of nutrition,
you're just not stressed about it.
Yeah. It's like a 5% of my brain wave length, and all the things just operate because I've built systems around them. Whereas I'm spending a lot more other time on other situations that take up more bandwidth.
And that's a good point. When you're making change early on, that does consume a lot of bandwidth. Right. You know, like if you're learning a new language or learning an instrument, it consumes a lot of
calories.
And then all of a sudden it just becomes habitual. And then you can now all of a sudden, it's like driving. It's just, you just do it. It's just, you don't even really think about it. It's just intuition. It's just, reflexes.
I mean, let's say both of us, like, you look the same that I last saw you, and even from high school, almost
pretty much.
And I look the same. Right? I'd hope so.
You do. Okay. You don't look 50 though.
I'm not. I mean, I'm 41. So.
Oh, you're not 50 yet?
We've graduated together.
All right. Hey,
this dude, he was one spot higher up on our class list of GPAs.
Was I really?
Yeah, you were like 9 and I was 10.
Oh yeah, we did crack the top 10, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We both were on stage.
That's pretty funny, actually. We're on opposite ends because that's right. That's what it was. I'm just lucky we got out of high school.
We made it. We made it.
We're one of the few that made it from one of those Akron City schools. All right. Well, thanks everybody to listening. Appreciate it. Give us some feedback. We'll obviously have Brian's socials up. So if you want to follow him, if you know anybody that could use the services or wants to work with them, feel free to pass that on. And
easy to get a hold of me.
Yeah. So we'll make it pretty easy for them in the show notes and then on the screen here if anybody's watching. But thanks again for making it through an episode with us, and till another time. Enjoy.